oftentimes we live at such a high level of urgency that we don't have time to stop and smell the roses. We're kind of like, I'll just go into the store and buy some versus me stopping and actually looking at something living. Every encounter I have with a person is a treasure hunt.
Let's go. Yeah, make it look easy. Hey, stand up.
The Ryan Hanley Show shares the original ideas, habits, and mindsets of world-class original thinkers you can use to produce extraordinary results in your life and business. This is the way.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the show. We have a tremendous episode for you today, a conversation with Dr. Eric Peoples. Dr. Eric is a keynote speaker, executive coach, and pastor, and we dive deep into what he is seeing out in the marketplace among leadership trends, how his most successful clients are using certain mindsets, certain leadership mindsets to dial in and to finish big with the projects they have in front of them. This is an absolutely phenomenal episode. If you are in a leadership position or ever wish to be in one, take notes, my friends. As always, we don't run ads on this show, and all that I ask in return is that if you enjoy the content, share it with a friend, text it to somebody, email it to a colleague, and if you're feeling super froggy, leaving a rating and review on Spotify or Apple helps tremendously for new individuals such as yourself to find this show and understand exactly what we're talking about here and what we're trying to do. Get better, become the best version of ourselves, become focused, formidable finishers. My friends, I love you for listening to this show. Let's get on to Dr. Eric Peoples. Dr. Eric Peoples, my man, I'm so excited to have you on the show.
Dude, so good to be here with you, man. Love just what you're doing. Love the energy. So excited.
Dude, I always know it's going to be a good conversation when I have to say, like, stop talking, like, let me hit record, like, you know what I mean? When we're like kicking it before we go live. And we're just like crushing conversation, and I have to like catch myself and go, this is like what we should be talking about because people are going to want to hear this. So, you know, I got to see you speak live. We got to spend, probably 45 minutes chatting before you talked. I kind of caught you on the side at the event, and dude, I just love your approach, your nature. Like, I'm always intrigued by guys who are confident, who are strong characters, strong-willed, strong in their beliefs, but at the same time have this like humility and understanding and compassion for people. And like that's what immediately drew me into you. Not to just stroke your ego right off the rip.
No, dude, thank you so much.
But I'm so impressed by the way that you handle yourself in those environments, because I know, especially when you're a speaker, you're getting bombarded by people all over the place. And sometimes it can be, I don't want to say overwhelming, but it's just you're trying to do your thing and you get all this stuff, and you were just so generous with your time. And I just wanted to start the conversation by saying how much I appreciated that.
Well, it was a joy to connect with you. And I think one of the things too, it works both ways in the sense of, you know, there's something dynamic when another leader who's a high achiever who's going after it has curiosity. And when I say curiosity, not just kind of curiosity to poke holes, but literally like you have a learning attitude I love it. That to me, I think humility, if you're a learner, a lifelong learner, humility is a part of the package. If you walk into a room and think, I'm the biggest and baddest and I know everything, then you're in the wrong room. Find another one, because dude, I love learning. So I appreciate what you're sharing.
I think that's a really good point. I love that. Like, I think one of the first descriptors on your Instagram profile is lifelong learner, because I'm the same exact way. I read voraciously, a lot of different topics. I just love taking in information. And one of the things, I actually had a conversation with a friend about this the other day. He said something similar, like if you're the alpha in the room or whatever, you're in the wrong room. And I said, well, I agree with that. And we always want to be surrounding ourselves with people who are going to push us. But I also think there is something to the fact that you may think you're the alpha in the room, but there's always something you can learn from people, right?
Yeah.
Like someone who's just starting out, well, they might just be starting out in this part of their life, but maybe they went through something when they were growing up, or they're also a concert pianist on the side, or whatever. And yeah, maybe like in a certain context, you're the alpha, but I feel like if we, like you said, approach all situations with curiosity and humility, we can learn from everybody. And I think too often people hit a certain level of success or whatever, knowledge or status, and it's like, well, what could I possibly learn from that person? They're only doing X amount of revenue, or their business is this, or they're only this old. And it's like, yeah, except everybody has these ridiculous, amazing stories. And you probably know this from your podcast too. And there's just so much you can learn from people.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I think that with that whole learning piece, it's just, again, I think the older I get, the more experiences that I have, the places I go, I think there's the reality of, we're being in a room and learning from life experiences and hearing what other people think. I think the gift of presence, and being, listening, and not just, metacognition where you're listening and you already have an answer for what someone's saying, but when you're listening and you're really listening and someone can say to the person, I'm actually hearing you. You're making a statement, or, hey, tell me a little bit more of that. How did that happen? And I'm always curious. I'm on a plane a lot, and I might say to someone like, hey, so how'd you get started? And it's never like, you're connecting the dots, but life is like this. Rarely is it just linear, right? And it's I love that. It's a joy to me to have the experiences.
How do you cultivate presence in your life? Because I've mentioned on the show, so the audience knows this, but I have like diagnosed very high level ADHD, and for a long time I was that guy who, like, you'd be on the last syllable of your last word of what I perceived was the last word of your sentence. I'm already responding like on top of you, right? Or like I'm trying to project how your sentence is going to finish in my head as I'm listening to you, and I can't wait to respond, even if I'm incredibly interested in what you said. And I've had to really work hard. And actually part of my work on this podcast, even though I literally just did it to you, part of my work on this podcast has been it's been like an exercise in trying to be a better listener and being more present in the moment. For someone that at least from the outside as an observer is very good at being present in the moment, how do you work on it? Is there a practice? Is it just something that do you prep yourself sometimes? Like I sometimes in the hotel room will like, be present in this moment. Nothing else matters for the next 2 hours. You're going to go down. You're going to shake some hands, get to know what's going on, do your thing. Afterwards, you're going to listen to people, whatever. Like I will like almost prep talk myself to be present in the moment. Do you have anything that you do like that, or how have you cultivated that presence?
I think there's two things, and that's a great question, because oftentimes we live at such a high level of urgency that we don't have time to stop and smell the roses. We're kind of like, I'll just go into the store and buy some versus me stopping and actually looking at something living. And so one of the things that I trained myself in just from being around older leaders who are brilliant people, and that is every encounter I have with a person is a treasure hunt. And so like me talking to you, I'm like, man, this guy, I love, my attraction to your heart was for the heart for people. Like you want to help people win. And so when I hear that, I'm like, dude, I'm in. However, I can be a part of that story, that journey. Like that's easy for me. Now I can tell you that there have been lots of, conversations, lots of like just, people are like, hey, I've got this big idea and it's bigger than a screen, right? So it's like crazy stuff. And you're like, yeah, but are you making a difference? Are you making it matter for others? And I think so that's one. I'm just curious. I'm gonna be with Ryan today, and it's gonna be a treasure hunt, man. He's gonna say something that I'm gonna take a note on, and it's gonna spark that. And the other part, just from a real practical standpoint, is that I actually I have my ring on, my wedding band, and I will sit there, and sometimes if it's flying, conversation with others, I will actually put my hand over my ring, and I will spin it 15, 20 times just to make sure that I'm hearing what you're saying.
Yeah.
That I'm not engaging because I think you're at the end of your sentence or whatever. Because much like you, my mind works really quickly, and so I have to create pauses. Otherwise, I'll step on the moment versus add to it.
Yeah, I was reading Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now, which I highly recommend to everyone. I found the second half to be a little repetitive, but the first like 50 to 60% of the book is just absolute pure gold for this particular topic. And in there, there was this idea of space, like building space between your response. And it's not just one so you can collect your thoughts and make sure that your response is thoughtful and something that you actually mean to say, but it also shows the other person it's respect for that other person in the conversation. Because when that person finishes and you immediately jump in, now there's moments, maybe you're with your buddies or your friends and you're all jacked up and you're telling story, and that's a different environment. But when you're in a moment where you are trying to learn from someone and you are listening to them, and I've really tried to do this. I'm probably gonna mess it up a couple times on the show. Forgive me for that. But what it does is it shows that other person, I care enough about you to delay my response and actually be thoughtful in how I respond to you. Because and if you're listening to this, guys, one way that you can see it is how often when you first respond, do you correct that initial 3-4 words that you start with? Or do you say a few words and then almost repeat those couple words again before you get to your thought? What that shows is I haven't actually collected myself enough to respond yet. And I've found I can be much more thoughtful in my responses when I try to build in even a beat, just a beat. And that person, now they want to listen to you. They don't, you know what I mean? Versus, something to say something to you and you respond and you can just tell they're just like, I don't care what you're saying. It's just, it's such an interesting thing. The other thing in that book, and I apologize, I'm talking, I just want to get this out of my face. He's got this idea that it makes perfect sense when you hear it. It's a little ethereal. So I do apologize to you guys if you're not into this kind of stuff, but I think it's valid. He makes the very clear point early in the book that there is literally no such thing as the future or the past. Doesn't exist. All that exists is this moment right now with you. And to spend every moment that we spend out in the future or back in the past is essentially a waste of time. Not that we shouldn't do self-reflection, not that we shouldn't do goal setting. Those are powerful things. But if I'm sitting here going, okay, I got to get through this conversation with Eric, and then I got this thing I got to do for this project over here, and this. Now I'm not here with you. I'm not in this moment with you. I'm living in another time or place, and it doesn't allow you to be at your best.
Sounds like sports psychology.
Yeah.
Especially working with some leaders in the field of with high achievers as it relates to sports. How do you, the last miss you made, the poor golf swing you took, living in the present, living in the now. I think that's a very interesting thought. I also do believe in the time and energy that we invest in the moment is, I've heard it said, a professor told me, call it one time, the gift of presence. And so that I'm able to, it's not only is it me exchanging the gift of being present here, but I'm also receiving the gift of understanding, learning, curiosity, growth. And I think when you curate your respective relationships, you don't find yourself saying, wow, what a waste of time, because you're living with such a high level of intentionality, not just from a give and take standpoint, but you're going, wait a second, I'm going to be in the right room with the right people at the right time. And so being a good investor or even a good steward of my time and energy, that curates the moment from being simply an opportunity, right? And being distracted by those things to understand, wait, that's a distraction. This is a real opportunity because I'm in a room with curious people. I'm learning, I'm growing, I'm developing, I'm adding value. And so the idea of past or present, I think that, how you learn also has to be a part of that factor too.
Yeah.
And that's just, from a purely educational standpoint, some are organic learners, others are not. So, we can write books with theories too. I mean, maybe it works in his world, and maybe for others too.
Imagine what your life would be like if you were fully present in every moment, viewing it through the filter of opportunity. Or like every moment, every interaction, from the coffee that you're handed by a barista to the exchange of a Coke at the counter on a gas station, or a conversation like this one. If you were fully present and passing it all through the filter of this is an opportunity, and maybe that opportunity is very small and nothing comes of it, but you don't know if you're always just projecting out or assuming I mean, that's the other thing. And I find that I sometimes, I guess in my past, I've worked very hard, especially as I accumulated more leadership positions, and really that's where I want to take our conversation ultimately, is into leadership. But was you by being present, you're able to fully grasp each opportunity as presented and dissect it for what it is. And instead of what I did in the past was go, I already assume I know what Eric's going to say, so I'm just going to kind of plow through this, instead of, man, I wonder where Eric's going to take this conversation today. Like, man, I can't wait to find out where we go. Like, what branch of the brain or knowledge or experience are we going to touch? Like, it's like this tiny little reframing, but man, it opens up the world. And that kind of leads me into where I wanted to go with you. You work with a tremendous number of high achievers all over the world. We were talking about it a little before. You're recently in Ecuador, you're traveling to Brazil, you're all over the country. When I first met you, you were at a mastermind a room full of 100 of some of the best minds in the insurance industry, high achievers. I guess, what is the state of leadership today? When we're talking about high achievers, the individuals, the men and women that are they're dialed in, their team's behind them, things are going well. Like, what is the state of that leader today? What does that look like?
I think that's a really great question, because we all have, internal pressure going on and external pressures that are going on. And so depending upon your vertical market, what I am seeing is it depends on the pressures that people are actually, I wouldn't even say under, but I would say the pressures they're responding to. And so one of the things I love doing in why I travel is I love helping leaders lead. I love helping them win and focus and finish strong. And one of those pieces is in winning is, what's important now. And so I would say the universal struggle when the pressure's on is becoming living in a silo, living in isolation, your own. I would say it's almost like it's not cocooning. It's just running hard after things. And so some of the questions that are popping up in them running hard after things, and that could either be you're acquiring stuff. That's also a knee-jerk reaction sometimes. I have less of a problem with people going after stuff because you can always sell it than where you're burning your life and time. You can always make more money, but you can't make more time. And so I'm watching the burn ratio. And so I'll say this, from a professional standpoint, I'm seeing people who are struggling with the intergenerational disconnect. The average 35-year-old is spending as much time on video games as a 15-year-old now. Your people are after, on their social media, show the best, hide the rest. 34% of our population is dealing with, being surveyed, that they wrestle with loneliness once a week. Some people think about being lonely once a week, and 10% say they wrestle with loneliness every day. So this isn't like Joe Average, I'm talking about people who are moving the dial in some form or fashion. And so when you think about how that's directly connected to the pressures, I would to winning is the misalignment with what's important now. What's important now from a 40-year-old is different than what's important now for a 60-year-old. And so I think it's those having those moments of clarity where we really come to grips with in our lives where we're going, I need to make sure that I'm around. Again, I'm a big proponent about the right relationships. I'm around people that can challenge me to curate my moments. Like, for instance, do you need to go to Hawaii for a month, or should you go to Hawaii for 2 weeks because that's where you're going to be best recharged? Like there's different. It can sound really granular, but that's where the kind of the crazy decisions are made when you're talking to yourself. And I'll say this and let you go here. One of the things I found about Eric Peoples is that when I have a conversation with myself, me, myself, and I'm always right. I've never had a bad idea that I haven't thought, dude, you know what? And that, without talking to someone else, I'm like, that's a great idea. Sometimes it's not. So who are you talking to help create friction? Friction's good. To focus on what it is you say you're after.
So there's a bunch of questions that I have in there. The first one is specifically about loneliness, and this can be in your work and your personal feelings, however you want to answer. Part of me, so I like being alone. I enjoy it. I have 2 kids. I have a decent number of friends. I have a woman who I've been seeing for a little more than a year now, and it's a great relationship, and everything is good. I love spending time with her. But at the same time, I really enjoy being alone. And that wasn't always the case. That's something that I've worked on and whatever. Do you think that some of the feelings of loneliness are a misalignment with what spending time with yourself really is, or people aren't doing the work? Like, to me, part of it to me is like, can we reframe loneliness as positive time spent with ourself? And is it maybe culturally we've lost the skill of being alone?
Okay, I'll say it this way, and I'm reminded. My wife tells me to don't make 2 points. Make sure you finish the second one, because otherwise I have 2 points. I get hung up on the first one. But the first one is there's a difference between loneliness and solitude. Mm-hmm. What you're speaking about is solitude. You've got all these other relational factors that make you who you are. There's a giving out, right? You're pouring out, you're giving out, you're responsible for things. You've recognized that responsibility, and so now you're saying, I need some me time, which is healthy. Most people don't have me time because they don't like me time, and what I'm talking about is they don't like themselves. And when you don't like yourselves, then the sound of silence is the echo of your misalignment, dissatisfaction is so loud that you start putting and pulling things into your life. You create a vacuum by nature because you're trying to fill it with something. And so you hear the words fulfilled. I'm not fulfilled. Well, you know what? It's fulfillment I think is directly connected to even the seasons of your life. I remember you said your 2 boys, I know, go ahead, you're saying something?
No.
Okay, I know the funny part about it. It's like fulfilled. I remember when my daughter was 14 months old, and fulfillment was her sleeping through the night. We're like, oh man, it's like, it's like rest is a weapon. Sleep deprivation is used for torture. Over 50 hours to 70, you're cracking. You're singing. You're telling everything. And so, in the season you're in, what does it look like for you to live a fulfilled life? Well, you've defined what's important now. So now let's focus on that. How do we get there? How do we get from here to there? And so loneliness is the sense of unfulfillment. Solitude is where you're able to rest, reflect, and even an attitude of gratitude is that thread is weaved throughout the conversation. And so, I think there's a major, there's this disconnect when people are you lonely? Well, most people who say they're lonely are burnt out. Well, you're giving energy to the wrong things. And the drive to not disappoint people is dangerous.
Yeah. One thing that helped me in this area was I've been described as a disagreeable person. And I used to take that as a negative. And I did a lot of reading on this. And actually, there's a guy, his name's Eric Weinstein. I don't know if you've heard him, or he's I'd say he's an intellectual to a certain extent. He's a physics guy, math guy, and he does a lot of podcasts and stuff. And I really fell in love with his work. And he talked about on this show, and this was like a year or two ago that I heard this. He talked about his relationship to his disagreeableness, and he's like, we've developed a false narrative around what it means to be disagreeable. And what he said was, questioning things, having your own opinion, understanding and being okay with, I could have an opinion that I share with you today that you could just say, I hear you, I don't agree. And technically, that pushback is disagreeableness in the purest sense of the context, but it's, am I going to be okay with this person that I respect, enjoy, and care about disagreeing with opinion I have? And I am, and it took a long time to get there. And my point in this little diatribe is that when you start to become okay, I think a lot of that loneliness, that sense of being alone is, I need everyone to like me and agree with me, and I need to agree with them, and everything needs to be okay and happy and fun. It's like, that is just simply not life. And in fact, when you start to be okay with the fact that I can enjoy someone, care about someone, and we could have 2 or 3 things that we just intrinsically disagree about, and that's perfectly fine. All of a sudden you start to go, oh, like, I'm not alone. That person likes me. We're connected. We just disagree on this one topic over here, which is perfectly fine because there's like 17 other topics that we do agree on. And we don't focus on all the things that we do agree on, that we shared values we have. We tend to focus on that one value that we disagree on, and then that creates this disconnect, and now all of a sudden we're isolated and by ourselves. And I just don't think we talk about that type of stuff, because coming all the way back to leadership, I mean, geez, you know and can speak to it even more than I can. Like, when you're a leader, everybody's going to disagree with you about something you say, right? I mean, that's part of the job.
It is, and one of the big challenges that we face is that when you think that leadership is a popularity contest, then there's 2 things that happen. And I'm going to say 2 things that happen, and I'm going to actually say the 2. Number 1 is you're not being true to yourself, but number 2, the people who think they know you have actually never met you. Imposter syndrome. Well, I don't want to say this because what happens if I get in trouble? Well, what does happen if you get in trouble? Now, again, I think there's a different, as far as I also pre-qualify people in the conversations. I ask them, hey, so I don't say, tell me your toughest moment. I go, have you ever played a sport? And depending upon what the sport is, like what did you play? Baseball?
Baseball, yeah. Baseball.
Yeah, okay, baseball. So let's see. I mean, can you count how many times you got hit by a ball? I mean, come on. I mean, that's just, that's a part of it. And the thing is that you have a resolve that you didn't quit. You did not win every game you played. And so there's a disconnect even in the leadership development process now. There's the push of followership development process versus leadership development process. One of the folks who mentors me has had a lot of influences, John Maxwell. For me, I'm okay, if you will, with my understanding my inadequacies, because I know I need to grow, I know I need to learn. Then I'm not threatened by you saying that you don't think I'm enough. That's okay. Doesn't matter. I'm picking at pickleball. I don't know why I'm picking pickleball. Everyone says don't play it, but I'm an aggressive person. I played sports. I played football, which is full contact, right? And I'm thinking, I said I'm going to learn how to play pickleball in kind of in the back 40 because. I know I played racquetball, table tennis. I played racket sports, and I just love golf. I love the part of just full tilt, right? And so, like, I've got to know my audience, but I also need to know me, learning the game, the different pieces of it. But when you are an athlete, I think there's a part of the mix in your life as a leader where you understand what it means to lose, having the resolve to get back up, and also the making the decision. Like, you know what? The only thing I didn't lose, I'm learning.
So baseball was my love, but football was my favorite sport. So I had a scholarship to play football in college, and I got 3 concussions my senior season, and it ended my football career.
Yeah, good.
But what I loved about football in particular, and baseball has a lot of this too, but I'm similar to you. It was like all those societal governors that we have to put on our personality to like integrate into like, rational human like niceness. In football, you can turn all those governors off and you just get to be 100% aggressive. And what I think, what we miss when we watch highlight reels or we look at our favorite stars is we look at the great catch or throw or tackle, and we don't see how the play before, that linebacker who got the sack on the highlight reel, the play before they got blindsided by a guard that they didn't see, and they were picking themselves up off the ground. You know what I mean? And they got drool coming out of their mouth and blood, and they're kind of like shaking it off. Yet they turn around, get the play call, get back in their position, and then they make the highlight reel play. And you're forced in at least from my experience. I've never played sports like rugby and some of the others that are also full contact, but you are forced to say, all this pain I feel is not going to stop me from the goal that I have in whatever the position is I play in that particular sport. It translates. I do think it translates to a lot of different sports, a lot of different things. But in particular, I find football players they get this like meathead tag, which is, I think, completely false. If anyone who's played the game, you cannot be a meathead. You can act like a meathead, but you are not a meathead. The meatheads don't make it. And it's fun. I think they act like meatheads because it's fun. Who doesn't want to act that way? But but like in regard, they're all, the most successful are incredibly intelligent individuals, and you are going to get knocked down. Not like, oh, I didn't make this sale, like literally knocked to the ground and have to pick yourself back up and re-engage in the game. And if you have an ounce of hesitation, you are going to get knocked back down to the ground again until you lose that piece of you. And I think that type of mentality is what we need to have as leaders today, is like, it's okay. Like, we look at, I'm listening to Walter Isaacson's biography of Elon Musk, right? And I love Elon Musk. I think he has an incredible number of personality traits that I think could be questioned. However, this is an individual who in the purest sense has been knocked to the ground so many times, and he just keeps getting back up. And that's how he got to be there. Mm-hmm. And also a level of craziness and a willingness to destroy his personal life and all these other things. But it's like we've lost aggression. Do you agree with that? Like we've made aggression into this toxic thing that I don't think it has to be. It can be toxic, and I don't mean yelling and being a jerk, but there's an aggressive nature to leadership that I feel like has been, I don't know, just put in this box of bad, and I don't know how to break it out, I guess.
I think you're onto something, because it also too is understanding the audience. It's people who, if we were sitting in a room listening to a leader share about all the wins they've had, our curiosity would be sparked. Tell me about your failures. Tell me about the challenges. You didn't get from here to there without some valleys, some potholes, some challenges, some pick yourself up, dust yourself off. You didn't even get there. Maybe you didn't even get there by just picking yourself up. There are others who helped you get up and to move. And that just blows up the fallacy of self-made man. No, there's some resolve and determination that you have to have when it's obvious what your assignment is. And I'm as a person of faith, understanding purpose. It is what I know why I get up in the morning. I know what I'm after. I love helping leaders lead, but there also is that part, the vetting process inside of me that says, you know what? You've got to want it. If I want what you want more than you, then I'm wasting my time. But if I can throw gas on the fire, if I can open a door for you or connect you with someone you need to know, then hey, awesome. I'm excited to be a part of it. And this domestication of the leadership approach, I think, is a great fallacy. And in some ways, why many aren't winning. And when I'm talking about winning, I'm not just talking about, hey, winning what's important now in the sense of I'm talking about winning overall, where the grand scheme of things, you're able to say, this is the target, this is what I'm after, and I'm finishing well, where it's undisputed. People can say whatever they want to about Elon Musk, but the bottom line is that he's winning. In some form or fashion, he's winning in a way that others would want to.
Yeah. And I think it's perfectly reasonable to say, I don't want his life. I don't want his life.
No.
He's even said, you don't want my life. However, to throw out everything, and I I hate when I do this, but I had this online argument about Elon Musk with a guy, which whatever. And he's saying, what has he ever achieved? And I'm like, and I'm like, I get it. What it ultimately came down to was he didn't like his personality. And it's like, okay, I can appreciate that you don't like his personality. His personality doesn't really bother me that much. I wouldn't want his life. I wouldn't want that. But how can you deny results, right? And I had a podcast guest, and I'm going to butcher his last name, Rajiv. I apologize. It's Rajiv Peshwara. Rajiv Peshwara. If you go back, his shtick is, and I don't mean shtick in a negative way, is positive autocratic leadership. And he got there because he was doing a survey for some client, and it came back that over 16,000 responses. They had what would you want in a leader, and all these characteristics, like a personality test, but what you would want of a leader. And it came back unequivocally, more than 20 countries, 16,000 plus responses, that an autocratic leader like Steve Jobs or Elon Musk is what people want to follow. And I found it so intriguing because everything we read today is, this nice kind of beta personality and everybody's equal and all this kind of stuff. And those come from good places. I don't mean those to downgrade those. But at the end of the day, we need someone who's got a vision and we believe is going to pull the ship. You see these, great leaders, stand behind their team and poor leaders stand out in front. And I'm like, I don't think that's true. I think great leaders do stand out front, and they act as the tip of the spear. They deflect they take all the fodder, they take all the hits and the flack so that their team can be amazing. If you're standing behind them, they're taking that crap. And I want that guy or gal who's going to be like, screw everyone. We're going. We're going to get bloodied and beaten and yelled at. But at the end of the day, we're going to get to this place that we all want to go to. And it takes a little bit of oomph, like guts, like a little bit of Angela Duckworth's grit. You need this. And I just feel like we don't cultivate it enough anymore.
No, well, I don't think that I think cultivation for, I would say for leaders to lead, requires someone giving an opportunity and taking a risk. And it also requires failure. And so what ends up happening is, again, that whole idea of domestication as far as leaders, it's that part where and I think that also there's that it can be generational, but also too, from a global standpoint, there's lots of nations and people and cultures that is not the mindset. The mindset is very much along the lines of my ceiling is your floor. So if I'm going to help launch you into your next now, then I've got to tell you the truth. I can't pretend that you're not going to take some hits. You're not going to take some shots. That's a part of the mix. When's the last time you went to buy a car and you asked them, does it come with a windshield? No, it comes with a windshield. It comes with tires. It comes with a challenge. And you know what? Before you drive off the lot, you have to have insurance, because they're betting you do have an accident and you're betting you don't. No, you're betting you're like, I'm going to have an accident. No. They're betting you don't. And so we have challenges. We have stuff. And I just look at this and I go, if we want to be people who impact the future, then we've got to act like it. We've got to have the conversations. I say to my leaders, I'm not here for your comfort. I work with, and I don't say that trying to as an ogre or trying to be, but I will not be, I would say, domesticated in a sense of saying, listen, I work with people who, it's like live fire. I work with warriors. I work with people who are all about life to the floor. And so for me, having conversations like, come on, people, like, let's go. Like, they don't need to be amped up. They are. They don't need to be, they need to understand their big deal is loyalty. Their big deal is we are committed to the cause to win. And here's the other part, whatever it costs. I think what some of the things you're saying, if I had to sum it up, I'd say the challenges right now, we're dealing with people who've counted the cost and they think it'd be better for Ryan to pay than for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Slightly, I want to, something you said just spurred a question that I'm interested in, and you can answer however you want or not answer it if you feel uncomfortable. But, you said man of faith, myself as well. I wear a cross, tattooed a cross on my arm. I actually have two crosses on my arm. I very much, faith is a big part of my life. And I'm interested in your take on like free will versus fate. As someone who strives to be the best version of themselves, where do you stand on that particular idea?
I think one of the, if I understand it correctly, just free will, you're saying, whatever happens, happens. And then there's the other side that is, I'm going to do this because I have the faith for it. Is that what you mean?
I mean, is our outcome in life predetermined, or do we have the ability to dictate the outcome?
Okay, so you're talking about, so from a theological standpoint, that's called predestination by foreknowledge. But
yes.
Anyway, yeah, I think that it's really interesting that question, because I've lived long enough where there were enough people that didn't believe in me that caused me to question what I felt that was burning in me. And now when I look down the line 30 years later, they were wrong. I was right. I can't say I wasted my time, but I'm so grateful for those challenges, or if you even would say the resistance. Friction is good. Friction is how we drive our cars. Friction is how we fly planes. It's friction. And so the idea of being a purpose-driven person, which I believe is important, and being purpose-driven, again, in my world that I live from, is not just acquiring things, but is impacting people. I just, among the other things I do, there's time. I just did a funeral 3 weeks ago. A guy said, "Hey, man, can you do my mother's funeral?" Nothing she said towards her last hours was, "I wish I had more stuff." Mm-hmm. It was always more time, or I wish I could have talked to this person. And when you begin to think about that whole free will, I think that a lot of folks, that's a really great card to cash when we just don't want to take responsibility. And I, where we just were kind of like, what, I don't want to have to, I don't want to have to pay the price. I don't want to have to attach, it's not even a belief system, but I just want to do my own thing. What will be, will be. I can't imagine living like that, because It's like pop all the hope balloons. As a person of faith, again, it's getting clarity on why you live. I live to help people win. I want to help you win. I don't care if it's riding your bicycle, man. I'll be out there and put training wheels on that thing. We'll start with tricycle. Like, what's our goal? Let's go. Because most people who live from the place of it being all about self-requirement, 50 years after your death, no one will even remember you. That's powerful. That's brutal. That's frightening. And that's taking into consideration, again, I got my doctorate in organizational leadership. I study all this stuff. How do the mom and pop shops that started 50 years ago, they don't exist anymore? How did they get gobbled up by big box companies? Well, there was something to be said. And more, that's uncommon because uncommon in the sense of something being lasting 100 years. But if you go to Japan, they have a 100-year business plan. Oh, man, what's that all about? They think intergenerational. And so when we start putting into the mix of free will and other things, I haven't heard a lot of that thinking stay connected to generational wealth, the long game. Oftentimes it's been filled, the folks I've actually worked with in that kind of along those lines, it's been filled with a lot of regret because they didn't count the cost fully. But when you step out, I say step out when you're living by faith, as a person living by faith. Yeah, there's a part of disappointment. Yes, there's challenges that go through, but that happen. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you can say, I did the best I could versus I tried. Now, try means something in horseshoes and grenades, but the best I could might make me jump on top of that grenade.
I had a coach in high school. I'm on a baseball team. I played in very high level baseball team, and we were struggling in the middle of the season. And a lot of it was just we weren't getting along as a team, kind of playing for ourselves. And he said, this is a guy that also smoked a cigar on third base as he was coaching third base. So understand the time period that we're in. He goes, you sons of bitches, you're not just playing for the name on the front of the jersey. You're playing for the name on the back. And what he meant by that was every action you take out here isn't just a reflection of you or this team. It's a reflection of your parents. It's a reflection of your siblings, of the grandparents that come watch you play, of the cousins that come watch you play. Like, you're playing for more than just yourself or this team. You're playing for everyone who supports you, who cares about you. Because if you act like a clown out here, that reflects on them. And that has stuck with me. I don't think I probably, I was probably 16 at the time. I probably hadn't thought that deeply about it. But when he said that, it shut every single guy in that dugout up. We went on to go all the way. We lost a tough game in the state championship, but we went on to turn our season around, played amazing. I'm telling you, you could have heard a pin drop. Not a single guy in that team had probably ever heard something like that said that way and explained in that way. And I'm paraphrasing a little bit, and there were way more curse words. But it was like this moment where I to what you said, like, when in America did we lose generational thinking? Like, when did we stop saying, I'm not living for me or just me. I'm living for my kids. I'm living for my kids' kids so that I can instill lessons in them. I can set them up, through, however I feel I need to do that so that they then can be in a position to take care of their children, and on we go. Like, when did we lose that? I don't know the answer, but it feels like we have to a certain extent.
I think the word that it comes to my mind is, and I talk about this often, is responsibility. Right? There's this part where your coach was speaking to you all, and you took responsibility, you break that word up, responsibility. You had the ability to decide right there. I am empowered to make a decision right now for my future, for my friends, for my family, for my people, who I represent, and I'm going to represent them well. And so when you look over, just over generations in the past, probably 50 years even, maybe more, maybe 75 actually, there was a pivot from, well, it's not out of my hands. You know, we've got shareholders to care for. I have to do this, and I've got to make the cut. I'm sorry because it's, and so that responsibility, as if, like it gets lost in translation. Like no one has the ability to make me mad. I choose to be mad. I have a responsibility. My response to someone's ignorance doesn't mean I've got to escalate it. I can say, you know what? And I'll say something simple. A couple days ago, I'm in the supermarket. I'm waiting in line. There's you take the ticket for your waiting line at the deli, and there was a stack of numbers on the top, and I took with a number from off the top, and I'm standing there, and the guy says 98, and had been standing by the deli guy says 98. I've been standing next to a guy for probably 5 minutes just waiting. He's 98, and the guy looks at I said to him, "What number are you?" He goes, "I'm 99." I go, "Oh, you were here before me." So I switch. He switch with him. I take 99. He's like, "Wow, that's very kind of you." Like, thank you. Like he was in shock. Dude, remember back in the day when that was just normal? Like, what even, like, literally, I'm like, what happened?
Yeah.
What happened to just not decency and consideration? When you're convinced that you actually have to fight for everything you get all the time, that no one's going to ever take care of you, you've got to take care of you to such a level where, if we had the Titanic happen nowadays, who knows who would be in the boat, because the fighting, the craziness would be going on, because we think that our moments right here are the most amazing moments ever. I would say this, how your moments will be measured 50 years from now, when your grandchildren are talking about you, and your kids are talking, it's like. I remember what Dad, man, this experience. I remember that guy, Ryan, man, it was so powerful. I had this moment in my business, I thought it was all over, and he said something to me that was amazing. Let's make our moments count. That's what's missing, I think, in today. We're not taking our responsibility. Is like I live in victimhood, and I live from a place of I'm not empowered. No, you are empowered. You have to choose.
Dr. Eric Peoples, my friends, it is such a pleasure. Oh my gosh, I could go for hours. I'm stopping here only because I could talk for another 2 hours with you. Easy. This is amazing.
This has been really good.
It's giving me fodder. We'll do this again in 6 months or so. Bring you back on the show.
Hey, I'd love to.
I just enjoy your viewpoint on the world. I think your approach, as I started with, is this really wonderful and needed mix today of passion and strength mixed with humility and understanding. And I think we need more people like you out doing what you do. Where can people connect with you and go deeper down the rabbit hole in your work?
Well, you can find me Eric Peoples Leadership Podcast. That's one of them, and I can't wait to have you on mine. It's going to be awesome. Stay tuned. I got a new assistant. Yay! Coming, yes. And also ericpeoples.co. That's my Instagram handle. But you can find me through podcasts, Instagram, and stay tuned. I'm looking forward. Hey, I'd love to be back in 6 months to tell you more about the book we're writing. It's going to be awesome for sure.
Done deal.
Hey.
Eric, thank you so much. I wish you nothing but the best, my friend.
Hey, my friend. Honor to be with you. Thanks again.
Let's go. Yeah, make it look easy. Hey, stand up.
Thank you for listening to The Ryan Hanley Show. Be sure to subscribe and leave us a comment or review wherever you listen to podcasts.
Came in a thing for me. I never switched up, no change in me. The only thing changing is